come on. You think you drive me crazy.
This clip is from the film Incendious, a film which uses Radiohead's You and Whose Army and Like Spinning Plates in prominent moments throughout its runtime. Denis Villeneuve is no stranger to using the band's music. We hear the song Codex at the end of his film Prisoners. And Villeneuve is not the only director using Radiohead's music to adorn their films. Look at Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet, where Talk Show Host is used. And what about Cuarón's Children of Men? Life in a Glass House is used there. Why do filmmakers like to use Radiohead for their needle drops? What about the band's music is so applicable to the medium? We have to go back further, analyzing the different ways that popular music has been used in film. Before the 1960s, films were typically scored by composers, given original orchestral or jazz soundtracks. Sometimes pop songs were commissioned for film, like Mancini and Mercer's song Moon River, which was featured prominently in the film Breakfast at Tiffany's. However, these were exceptions to a general rule. For much of the first half of the 20th century, an original film needed an original score. It wasn't until the 60s that we saw popular music bleeding properly into film. The Beatles' A Hard Day's Night was a prime example of a contemporary rock band using film to bolster their increasing popularity. The counterculture movement was in full swing, and young people loved to hear their favorite tracks accompanying a movie. We got films like The Graduate and Easy Rider in the late 60s. Here, popular music was being used to drive emotional sequences that were originally driven by orchestral themes. These songs, which many people knew before going into the theater, served a dual purpose. Not only did they drive audiences to watch the movie, they also provided an emotional shorthand, a kind of vernacular. People already had emotional connections to these songs, and when they appeared in the film, audiences attributed those emotions to those scenes they were featured in. Thus, a filmmaker could create a sort of collage, combining the two mediums, music and film, to great effect. This became the norm for filmmakers going forward and persists today. Though many studio films still use original scores, many independent projects rely on so-called needle drops to punch above their weight. Tarantino and Scorsese are famous for their use of music in film. Iconic scenes accompanied by iconic tracks are a recipe for lasting impact. Radiohead began in 1985 and released their first studio album in 1993. This album, Pablo Honey, featured their breakout hit Creep, which propelled the band into superstardom seemingly overnight. They released a string of monumental albums throughout the 90s and 2000s. The Bends, OK Computer, Kid A. These albums are staples of experimental rock. Though they never released another cataclysmic hit like Creep, they became the darlings of critics and music aficionados alike, and maintained an extremely loyal following. Full of interesting instrumentation and poignant lyricism, Radiohead has carved out a space in the oversaturated rock genre. Their sound is overtly cinematic. The spectral voice of Tom York, coupled with the thrilling jagged guitars of Johnny Greenwood, make for music that seems custom-tailored for film. They were tapped to write the Bond theme for 2015's Spectre, but the song they made was ultimately rejected in favor of Sam Smith's Writings on the Wall. The track was released anyways, and is a perfect example of Radiohead's inimitable style, their ability to write a song that stands on its own legs while also seeming to beg for a visual component. Guitarist Johnny Greenwood would go on to score a great number of films as a solo composer. York's solo work would also be used in a number of films. It seems that the band's tense, brooding atmosphere, coupled with moments of quiet tension and explosive release, are the perfect formula for cinematic music making. When Villeneuve was writing the opening scene to Incendies, he said he knew it would require a Radiohead song. Listening to the music evokes a kind of imagery, and that is why so many filmmakers have chosen Radiohead as the masthead for their most cathartic scenes. I've been listening to Radiohead since college and always loved to hear their music in a film. I've only touched on a few examples here. but a Google search will bring up many more uses in film and television. Also, if you haven't seen the film Incendies, I cannot recommend it highly enough. It is a gorgeous and heartbreaking film, and it uses Radiohead to masterful effect. Definitely give it a watch when you get a chance.